Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the creaking wooden ribs of a Khmer rice storehouse where century-old grain dreams are kept. Picture this. You step over a threshold worn smooth by bare feet, each groove telling tales of monsoons and harvest moons. The air smells like forgotten rain, trapped in teakwood, sweet rot, and earth's old sweat mingling. And before you ask, no, that's not your neighbor's compost bin. This is the real deal. Let's get one thing straight. You're not here to play Indiana Jones. Those cobwebs above your head, they've outlived empires. That floorboard groaning under your left foot, it last creaked when Angkor Wat was just a sketch on palm leaves. Historians agree these storehouses fed 1 million people at their peak, though they still bicker about whether workers got rice, wine Fridays. Imagine arguing over HR policies for ghosts. Here's your reality check. If this place decides to swallow you whole, your phone's flashlight won't save you. Those survival skills from that weekend camping trip, useless. Ancient Khmer architects didn't bother with emergency exits, just rat highways and beetle kingdoms. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time below. I want to know who's braving monsoons in Manila or midnight sun in Reykjavik. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push open the doors, a protest of wood against wood that vibrates in your molars. Daylight bleeds through gaps in the walls, thin gold threads slicing through dust. 12 generations of farmers stored hope here, entire seasons pressed into sacks. Fun fact, they used crocodile oil to preserve the beams. Smelled awful, but hey, termites hated it more than you'd hate a surprise math test. Silence wraps around you, not empty, but full, the hush of grain settling, of moths shrugging off sleep. You trail a hand along the wall, your fingers catching on splinters older than your great-great-grandma's recipe for fish sauce. Historians still argue whether these storehouses doubled as ritual spaces. Maybe the rice gods liked mood lighting, who knows? Dust, motes swirl, glitter for the underslept. You half expect a caretaker to emerge, but the only movement is your shadow stretching lazy across the floor. That warmth by your ankle, not sunlight. It's the lingering breath of baskets that held last season's harvest, still humming with the memory of hands. A beetle scurries over your shoe, dressed for dinner in iridescent armor. You think about squishing it. Don't. Its ancestors survived Khmer Rouge patrols by playing dead. Respect the hustle. The air thickens, each breath a sip of history's herbal tea. Some claim fungal spores here have hallucinogenic properties. That's probably a lie, but maybe tilt your head. See how those rafters ripple like river currents. Yeah, exactly. You spot a ledger propped on a crate, water-stained pages logging yields from 1923, 78 baskets, 12 stolen by macaques. the curse of working near jungle real estate. Your shoes crunch something, rice kernels blackened by time. They crumble to powder, releasing a scent like wet stone and apology letters. A bat squeaks high above, the storehouse's night shift clocking in. You're trespassing, but the rats don't mind. They've seen worse. In 45, a Japanese squad hid here, left behind a rusted canteen now nesting spiders. War comes, war goes. The rice stays. Your phone buzzes. Ignore it. The outside world's on mute tonight. That itch behind your kneecap. Also ignore it. Probably just a spectral millipede evaluating your life choices. Lean against a pillar, teakwood, pressing into your spine like a grandmother's knuckle. Close your eyes. Somewhere beneath your feet, an underground river whispers secrets to the rice. Your pulse slows, the storehouse exhales, and for one syrupy second, you're not a visitor. You're part of the inventory. You brush dust from your sleeve. The pillars stand before you like petrified giants. Teakwood gleams dully, its iron-rich grain defying centuries of monsoon rot. Builders soaked these beams in peanut oil for 7 years. Local records swear it made them termite-proof. Your nail catches a spiral carving, a snake swallowing its own tail amid sheaves of rice. Historians still argue whether these symbols tracked lunar cycles or just delighted bored woodcarvers. Moonlight seeps through high slits, illuminating a procession etched at eye level. Elephants parade with howdahs shaped like lotus buds, their riders clutching sickle-shaped tools. One figure wears a crown of mango leaves, maybe King Jayavarman VII, inspecting granaries after some long-ago drought. You squint at the necklace carved around his throat, 72 tiny circles that might represent beads, rice grains, beheaded enemies. The pillar's base feels warmer than the air, strange for wood that's supposedly cold-blooded. Villagers whisper that teak absorbs sunlight all day, then exhales it after dark like a stony lung. Touch the leftmost column at midnight, they say, and you'll hear chopping sounds from when the forest gave up its trees. You press your ear against a knot, hearing only your own pulse. Flaking gold leaf clings to a carving of dancers, their arms bent at impossible angles. Scholars think this depicts harvest celebrations from the Chenla era back when rice was currency. But that guy on Reddit with the mushroom avatar insists it's a guide to astral projection. You trace a dancer's outstretched hand, her fingers pointing toward nothing. Just more wood. Pigeons coo high above their claws, click scrabbling across beams. Centuries of droppings stain the pillars in streaks. Lahala leaves, painted with birdlime. A crumbling section near the ceiling shows oxen pulling sledges through mud, their handlers, faces erased by woodworms. You inhale resin and age, the scent of empires that outlived their architects. Your shoulder bumps a pillar, 3 husks of rice skitter down its length. They land in your palm, blackened with soot from lanterns long extinguished. You pocket them absently, tokens from a timber older than your grandmother's grandmother. The grooves under your fingertips feel deliberate now, like braille meant for the dead. One carving stops you cold, a cluster of figures bowing before a tiger. Its tail curls around a child holding. Is that a mango or a human head? The debate section of your brain flickers, academic papers versus campfire tailies. Before you decide, a breeze rattles the thatch. Dust settles in your hair, the storehouse's way of saying move along. You step back, staring up at pillars merging into shadow. Their true height hides in gloom, timber Everest disappearing into bad country. Khmer engineers angled these beams to mimic forest canopies, genius or happy accident. Either way, the effect works. You half expect a monkey to swing down demanding tolls in sesame seeds. The westernmost pillar bears deep scratches, parallel lines grouping into fives. Tally marks for harvest baskets, prisoner counts, lovers' trysts. You run a finger along the gashes, splinters catching your skin. 10 groups of 7, then 3 lonely marks. History's receipts, always missing the last digit. A smell hits you, not dust or wood, but turmeric, faint like someone's lunch clinging to a cedar hope chest. No spice racks here, just ghosts of 1,000 meals eaten by workers a millennium gone. You lean against the teak, its warmth seeping through your shirt. Above, a moth lands on J. of Armin's stone ear, whispering heresies the carvers were too wise to etch. Your heel crunches something, a brittle scorpion carcass, blending with fallen grain. Its tail curves upward, mimicking the pillar's arches. You kick it gently, wondering what annals document storehouse pest control. Rat catchers, prayer chants, volunteer scorpions working security detail. The answer crumbles underfoot, another mystery lost to splinters and chaff. You crouch to examine a sickle abandoned mid-swing, its blade pocked with hungry orange teeth. 11th century ledgers mention Khmer smiths alloying iron with meteorite metal, gifts from sky gods promising stronger tools. The curved edge still glints where a whetstone loved it last. Or maybe that's just moonlight playing tricks. 5 bamboo baskets slump nearby, their woven bellies sagging with phantom harvests. One tilts open, revealing grains fossilized into a single amber clump. Packed earth floors hold footprints melted by centuries. Except here. Your boot fits perfectly into a depression near the wall. 5 toes plus a calloused heel. Workers apparently went barefoot despite scorpions, either tough or terribly underpaid. You wiggle your soles against dirt-worn glass smooth, feeling 7 generations of lunch breaks pressed beneath you. A clay jug sits overturned in the corner, its once red glaze fading to cirrhosis yellow. Archaeologists found similar vessels sealed with beeswax, storing rice wine for harvest festivals. This one reeks of emptiness, unless No's hallucinations count. You write it, half expecting genealogic to summon a tipsy farmhand from 1203 AD. 2 shovels lean crossed against a pillar, handles petrified into permanent matrimony. Their blade surfaces stipple with odd pockmarks, termite damage, or ritual scarring. That YouTuber who microwaves artifacts claims such tools were baptized in ox blood for luck. You sniff, detecting only iron oxide and futility. Warmth radiates from a basket pressed to your thigh. It's bamboo, ribs still cradling borrowed sunheat. Villagers argue whether craftsmen wove chicken feathers into the weave for durability, or some foul-themed spiritual boost. The frayed edge prickles your palm, each splinter a monument to someone's rushed lunch hour. Historians still debate why floor mosaics show tigers carrying sheaves in their jaws, tribute or threat. Your flashlight catches a cobweb stretched between shovel handles, its strands beaded with dust. It shimmers briefly, a ghostly lyre played by departing footfalls. A child's sandal fossilizes near your foot, woven pandanus leaves outlasting empires. You count 7 repair stitches along the sole evidence of parents who refused to quit. The toe regions worn translucent, little feet scrubbing stories into fibers during games of hide and tiger. Your elbow brushes a hanging bamboo rake, its tines clattering like a xylophone skeleton. Night guards in the 1950s swore similar sounds prefaced granary fires, though drunk witnesses blamed everything from poltergeists to jazz-loving termites. You still the racket, half regretting your sudden percussion career. Beneath a moldering hay pile, something winks. A coconut shell dipper rests intact, its rim darkened by 10,000 sips. Ancient HR manuals required foremen to provide hourly water breaks. Not that anyone enforced it. You flip it, finding a crude phallus carved inside. Some jokes transcend millennia. You kick a pebble, it skitters into a drainage groove worn palm deep. Workers engineered these channels to shunt monsoon floods, clever bastards. The stone rolls 17 inches before sticking, coincidentally matching Khmer units of measurement. Or maybe physics just loves round numbers. Thatch above creaks, weight shifting where no weight should be. Pie dogs, board bats. You squint upward, sweat tickling your collarbone. A single feather spirals down mallard green with an absurd teal tip. No birds here sport such plumage, unless the local peacock population's been holding out. A handprint stains the western wall, palm smaller than yours, fingers splayed in haste. Forensic types would call it oxidized palm oils mixed with rice mold. You press your hand against it, millennia collapsing into a lukewarm high five. The wall exhales turmeric again, proof some ghosts pack better lunches than others. 3 chipped weights nest in the corner, carved from sandstone and sweat. Merchants used these to measure grain taxes, cheating buyers by varying the sizes. You juggle them, feeling the heft of scams that built kingdoms. One stone's base hides a crude, smiley face, ancient quality assurance joke. Your shadow stretches across the floor, elongated and speckled with roof holes. It merges with older stains workers afterimages burned into earth by absent suns. Their postures hunch familiar, backs bent, heads bowed, hands scooping what the lords left behind. You shift your modern silhouette, ruining the composition. A cicada carcass crumbles underfoot, its song silenced inside a resin tomb. Teensy legs claw at eternity, or maybe just rigor mortis. You crouch to inspect the amber prison, spotting a human hair floating beside its captor. Coworker, lover, jury's out, but the hair's styled in a distinctly 12th century mullet. The sickle's shadow slices your ankle, a cold kiss from history's blade. You retreat toward exit signs that don't exist, guided by generations who knew when to clock out. Packed earth softens your steps, each footprint regurgitating others pressed here before dawns you'll never witness. Lantern glow filters through a high window, gilding rusted tools into museum exhibits. Their handlers would laugh at this preservation, then demand overtime pay for starring roles. You pocket the dipper because archaeology's just sanctioned grave robbing with cleaner gloves. Warmth lingers where workers once huddled, swapping lies and lice. Your breath syncs with the absent many inhaling stories, exhaling carbon copies. The baskets sigh, releasing one last kernel that rolls toward darkness. It clicks against something unseen, starting a chain reaction of tiny collapses in the void. The last kernel's clatter stirs the air, lanterns bloom awake like golden fungi clinging to pillars. Hemp-wrapped flames bob on suspending ropes, each glow seeping through oiled fibers in honeycomb patterns. 13th century accounts describe storehouse keepers using river reeds for wicks. But this flicker smells suspiciously of fermented coconut. Shadows climb sack mountains, stretching into spindly giants that paw at the rafters. Your flashlight dies on cue, leaving you hostage to dancing luminescence. Historians praise Khmer engineering for these rotating lantern mounts, crude bearings lubed with pig fat and hope. A warm breeze makes them pirouette, projecting shadow puppet wars across grain piles. One sack's burlap weave glows translucent, each thread backlit into a miniature city grid. You half expect Lilliputian traffic jams, rice lorries honking through starch metropolises. The fabric's stamped with a merchant's seal, 3 elephants shrunken by mildew. Experts think these symbols guaranteed quality, though taste tests from 1302 AD remain inconclusive. 3 lanterns cluster near the roof, their combined glow pooling in a rafter's notch. Something up their winks glass or insect wing. You drag a sack over its contents, hissing like a betrayed lover, and climb. The summit rewards you with heat rash and a rusted opium tin. 19th century. FRENC. H. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Always forgetting their vices in dignified places. Hemp cords graze your neck, each sway transmitting creaks from the central beam. Workers hung these precisely, not for feng shui, but to deter bats with ticklish ropes. A moth immolates itself dramatically in the nearest flame. Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture plays in your head automatically. Its crisped wing floats down, a miniature satanic parade float. Sharper shadows, now lanterns sinking as oil reserves dwindle. The darkness between sacks thickens. Prime real estate for lurking skinks. You recall a Cambodian proverb: night weighs rice sacks by stealing light. Poetic, though farmers probably just needed excuses for shortchanging landlords. One lantern's frame slips, spilling light across a mural previously drowned in gloom. Faded ochre hands reach through rice stalks, some missing fingers, others sporting elaborate henna. Historians still argue whether these depict harvest rituals or early labor union pamphlets. The paint cracks as you breathe, centuries of binder glue finally taping out. A heat blister pops on the nearest lamp, sending a wax globule to tattoo the floor. It cools into a passable map of Australia. If Australia had a rice-based economy. You prod it, adhesive enough to trap a roach kingpin. Someone hung lanterns too low here. Ceilings bear scorch marks from enthusiastic tall workers. Moonlight infiltrates through a thatch gap, mixing with lantern gold to birth a new color. Let's call it pyrite sunrise. Pantone 8720C. It stripes your arm, each band warmer than the last. 19th century British explorers wrote of storehouses glowing like Buddhist hells. But they also ate mercury pills for fun. So, two lanterns flirt above a sack aisle, their shadows overlapping into a Rorschach blot. You see a dancing bear, or maybe a very assertive lotus. The flames drip carbon confetti, seasoning the rice below with abstract ambition. Health inspectors would riot if health inspectors existed here. And now, cold air snakes through the western wall, extinguishing a lantern with glacial precision. Its hemp shroud smolders resentfully, a retiree denied pension. You inhale the carcinogenic bouquet, equal parts nostalgia and lung adenocarcinoma. OSHA hasn't visited this sector since Angkor's decline. The remaining lights retreat into sullen flickers, their radiance abandoning sack forts piecemeal. Shadows launch, a coup usurping corners you swore were bright moments ago. Your knee encounters a forgotten mortar, its pestle standing at attention like a rusted soldier. Rice, once pounded here, held Bronze Age brats, birthday cakes together. Lantern light gutters one last time, highlighting a ledger page plastered to the wall, smuggled as insulation or morbid wallpaper. Squinting reveals columns of rice tallies, their Khmer numerals warped into R-rated Rorschach tests. A beetle scuttles over 900 sacks, improvising its own audit. Dawn's first infiltrator pierces the eastern wall, a laser targeting the opium tin. Sunbeams shotgun through cracks, transforming dust motes into disco ball refugees. Lanterns bow to their solar overlord, dousing wicks in silent defeat. Their smoke curls upward, semi-formal apologies to the thatch. You pocket the beetle, strictly for educational purposes, and descend the sack mountain. The floor greets your soles with renewed contempt, cold, gritty, lineage proud. Lantern hooks sway empty ghost pendulums marking time until dusk's return. Somewhere, a French colonizer pats his pockets, vaguely miffed. The evening creeps in like a thief, shadows pooling where daylight once sprawled. Lanterns flicker, alive once more, their hemp wicks soaked in something sharper than memory. You've heard Khmer rice vaults burned nut oil for purity, but this acrid tang suggests bat guano experiments. Moths materialize first, pale smudges drawn to the glow's false promises. Their wings catch the light just so, gilding edges like miniature manuscript illuminations. One lands on your wrist, its feathered antennae twitching Morse code. Locals once believed these were ancestor accountants, double-checking grain tallies from beyond. Lanterns sway in a breeze you can't feel, their dance partner invisible. The resulting shadows writhe across stacked sacks, forming shapes that pinch your neck hairs. A six-armed silhouette mimics Apsara dancers, until it becomes a very ambitious cobra. Historians still argue whether these light plays inspired Khmer choreography, or just scared lazy workers into vigilance. You track a moth's erratic path, up, down, through a lantern's corona. It hesitates mid-flight, as if remembering appointments in better-lit kingdoms. The flame reflects in its compound eyes 1,000 tiny suns demanding worship. Your breath sinks to the lanterns, pendulum swing, inhale at zenith, exhale at nadir. The rhythm bypasses your brain, thrumming directly in the hinges of your jaw. Shadows grow teeth where sacks touch, black fangs biting golden loafers of light. You sidestep only to intercept a moth convoy heading for thermal oblivion. Their wings brush your eyelashes, leaving ghost stamps that bloom when you blink. 19th century naturalists wrote of moth hypnosis in these storehouses. Though absinthe might assisted their research, the central lantern sputters, its reservoir down to oily dregs. Shadows solidify into something tactile, cool tendrils grazing your collarbone. You retreat toward moonlit patches, floorboards sighing under your tactical withdrawal. Khmer engineers purposely spaced lanterns to create retreat paths. Or maybe they just hated symmetry. A moth kamikazes into the weakest flame. Its death throws crisp and fragrant. The scent triggers primordial nostalgia, campfires, burnt toast, that time you microwaved a crayon. Its carcass floats down, a tiny fallen Icarus with inferior wax management. You resist the urge to clap barely. Lantern light bleeds across the ceiling, illuminating cobweb tapestries older than your grandfather's grudges. Spiders tap dance in the rafters, or maybe that's your retinas begging for mercy. The shadows between webs thicken, coalescing into a shape too angular for nature. It lunges, but turns out to be a ladder's guilty conscience. You count moth casualties in the ash below, 16 fallen scouts, one wounded warrior. Their wings form a haphazard morgue, iridescent fragments still glimmering with attitude. Someone should write an epic poem, the Iliad of the incandescent idiotic. You're volunteered as tribute. Dawn's advance scouts pierce through eastern chinks, amber beams clashing with lunar pallor. Moths scatter like spooked couriers, disappearing into shadowed pouches and sleeve-fold trenches. Lanterns gutter their final bows, spent wicks curling into martyred commas. Your shadow stretches long, then snaps back like a rubber band as darkness falls. You grope through the dark, palms scraping burlap, ridges taller than temple gates. These rice mountains breathe. Or maybe that's your own hyperventilation, echoing off 12-foot sacks. Khmer granaries hoarded enough grain to outlast monsoons, elevated floors keeping rot at bay. Yet your fingernails snag splinters from planks worn smooth by 9 centuries of panic-buying ghosts. Cool grains spill through your fingers, each husk polished smoother than a tick-tock INFLUENCERS Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Centuries of selective breeding made Khmer rice drought-resistant and weirdly good at judging life choices. You plunge both hands in elbows, disappearing like a kid raiding a candy volcano. The mound sighs, reshaping itself around your intrusion with wet sand's reluctance. Moonlight glazes the nearest sacks, turning jasmine rice into quarried marble. Farmers once believed full granaries attracted benevolent spirits, though your wrist-deep dive feels more like trespassing. A kernel sticks behind your ear, accidental tribute to rodent deities. Historians still argue whether Angkor's tax collectors measured yields by volume or by the bribes in their pockets. Your foot sinks into a spill pile, ankle-deep in grains that murmur like distant rain. Legends claim stored rice absorbs lovers' quarrels. These husks practically hum with 7th century marital drama. You withdraw a fistful. Wind whisks away half before you can count. Superstition says lost grains become fireflies, but these just look like expired sprinkles. The sack wall reveals hieroglyphic stains, handprints in rice bran oil and desperation. One palm smaller than yours, a child laborer's signature from the Chenla era. You press your hand over it, fingers not quite matching. Monks wrote of hunger ghosts licking these walls, though that could have been underpaid scribes projecting. Something crunches underfoot, a roasted grasshopper wing from someone's smuggled snack. Fieldworkers season their rice with protein confetti, 6-legged crunch, adding texture to 13-hour days. You pocket it absent-mindedly. Future, you will regret this during laundry. Above, moth wings tickle your scalp, flying entirely on cancelled guilt trips. A slithering sound freezes you mid-step rice, cascading off your sleeves like albino confetti. The silence tightens, then relaxes as a mustached mouse waddles by. Temple reliefs show rodents as sacred accountants, allowed first nibbles to appease accounting deities. This one eyes your shoelaces with atheist glee. You scale a lower sack, knees sinking into stubborn corporate ladder metaphors. The summit reveals dunes stretching into darkness, Barnum and Bailey's Rice edition. Your flashlight app betrays you 37% battery, reflecting off a million starchy facets. 8th century poets called this the kingdom's white blood, which explains their terrible medical outcomes. Dust motes swarm your phone light, mocking the concept of screensavers. 3 quick. Write a haiku about existential dread in rice form. Too late, they've already dispersed to more interesting dramas. Below, your abandoned sandal collects a crown of jealous husks. You unscrew a canteen warm water, transforming patches into temporary quicksand. Workers mixed rice, paste here for temple mortar, and probably office pranks involving stuck nobles. The mud sucks at your wrist, a half-hearted audition for that jungle swamp that definitely wants to eat you. Moonlight shifts, exposing a corner where sacks slump like defeated sumo wrestlers. Their burlap splits reveal generations of patch jobs, hemp fiber, silk scraps, 1980s Coca-Cola denim. Conservationists weep for ideal storage, but duct tape had its Bronze Age equivalents. You collapse backward into a grain drift, the world reduced to texture and tinnitus. Khmer royals stored premium rice for decades, aging it like whiskey for maximum diplomatic bribes. Your elbow knocks loose a pottery shard, possibly part of someone's lunchbox, before the great productivity push. The ceiling spins lazily, its bamboo ribs mimicking your last ECG readout. 13, 14, 15 heartbeats sync with scurries in distant corners. You're just another mammal in the granary now, no better than the mice tallying your net worth in stolen calories. A rice hill shifts nearby, avalanche whispers suggesting you're not the apex creature here. The Khmer Rouge repurposed granaries for darker harvests, but that's a documentary for better lit hours. You roll sideways, pearl grains clinging like needy exes. Dawn's first yawn seeps through walls, pink light gilding the highest mounds. Workers would arrive soon with reed baskets and stronger lower backs. You let grains trickle from your fist, each fall punctuating a silent countdown. By noon, this cool refuge would bake like a clay oven, and the rice kings would need fresh offerings. Half buried and borderline feral, you finally understand why emperors built their tombs full of rice, not for the afterlife, but because cold grains feel like infinity against sunburned skin. A beetle drags away your lost button trophy or tribute. History won't clarify. Your retreat stirs miniature storms, husk cyclones dancing ankle high. They swirl in your wake, persistent as creditors, charming as third-grade crushes. The granary doors creak ahead, their rusted hinges singing the song of workers who'd rather be napping. You stumble into air thick as rice porridge, cicadas drilling their tinnitus anthem through bamboo slats. The sound isn't just around you, it's under your tongue, vibrating molars like a dental horror story. Khmer farmers timed planting by these shrill maestros. Their rise signaling paddies were primed for seedlings. Doesn't mean you have to like their avant-garde jazz improv at 2 a.m. A scraped knee from earlier throbs in time with the swarm crusty duet of biology and poor decisions. Workers used mashed cicada wings to seal granary cracks, ancient flex tape with more screaming. You pluck a discarded exoskeleton from your collar, crumbling it to glitter for the dirt's enjoyment. Historians still argue whether these shells were medicinal or just the OG bubble wrap. Humidity glues your shirt to your spine, sweat sketching a map of regret across the fabric. The racket peaks as you pass a tree choked with larvae, nature's version of a buffering icon. 10th century monks wrote hymns to this noise, loops of chichi on palm leaf manuscripts. You hum along bad karaoke, appeasing no deities. Moonlight catches a winged soloist mid-shriek, its body an emerald bullet trained to nowhere. Legends say they carry dead scribes, unfinished poems, but this one's just yelling about prime real estate. Your sandal crushes a fallen chorus member, crispy payoff for eardrum assault. 5 more materialize like guilt. Trickles of cooler air slip through the insect wall, brief respites smuggled from some higher altitude utopia. You follow them toward river whispers, the Mekong's liquid drawl, undercutting the cicada propaganda. Beneath a leaning palm, 3 generations of shells cling to bark, hieroglyphs of molting seasons. Kids collected these as cursed coins until mothers found stashes and burned the devil's pocket change. A branch snaps overhead, dinner plate-sized shadow swooping into the din. Bat or owl, doesn't matter. It's a freelance noise complaint department. The cicadas dip for half a breath, then redline like nothing happened. You envy their confidence. The storehouse walls loom behind you, now a silhouette swallowed by stridulating fog. Workers napped here during monsoon breaks, dreams colonized by insect static. You test the theory, leaning against a termite-riddled post. Within breaths, the chirps morph into a lullaby for the overstimulated. Something pricks your neck, winged delinquent, or karma's sewing needle. You slap at emptiness, the swarm laughing in dB minor. Medicine men once prescribed ground cicadas for hysteria. You'd rather risk demonic possession, read torches flicker on distant paths, night guards hunting rats, or excuses to avoid family time. THEIR Chinese letter dances with the soundscape. We did start the Fire Meets Khmer karaoke bar. You fade deeper into shadow, improving everyone's evening by sheer absence. A lone cicada lands on your forearm, its compound eyes judging life choices. Temple carvings depict these guys as symbols of rebirth, which tracks. Since you'd die if one flew into your mouth, it flexes sound organs like a gym bro flashing pecs, dubious flex, but points for commitment. Dew soaks through your hem, a conspiracy between grass and humidity. Dawn's still hours off, but the night feels chewed up, half digests gone. You pocket another exoskeleton, souvenir, or future hex, depending on next week's luck. The cicadas stutter suddenly, a predator's shadow cutting their anthem mid-screech. In the hollow silence, your own pulse thumps triple time, until the swarm rallies like a phoenix with amps. You've heard enough, retreating toward civilization, or what passes for it. In a six-hut village, you step on something gelatinous. Frog, overripe mango. The darkness protects you from clarity. Behind, the storehouse hums with wings and wasted prayers, its rituals untouched by your brief invasion. Your hut's bamboo mat feels like a throne after hours in the insect coliseum. Mosquito netting droops, a tissue paper fortress, as eyelids surrender. The cicada's pitch bends into something softer, a mother shushing a century of heat stroke victims. Too late, you realize. They've already colonized your dreams. You cradle a clay cup of rice wine, its earthy tang pulling you toward the river's glow. Voices shred through storehouse walls, jagged laughter, a child's squeal, the wet smack of palm fruit hitting mud. Khmer betrothal rituals demanded families exchange 12 jars of this exact brew, crude insurance against future divorce. Doesn't explain Uncle Raincloud's third wife, but hey, traditions, a stubborn ox, a woman's voice cuts above others. Dowry was 3 baskets, and that speckled hen. You lean into a splintered crack in the wall, sap staining your cheek. Someone's recounting the great flood of 1292, how villagers floated on rice sacks, while pigs rode buffalo like furry captains. Historians still argue whether that's proud resilience or the world's weirdest cruise line. The story shifts. A man's gravel-tone mourning, a vanished ox. Swallowed by the same pothole that ate my sandals. Glasses clink, liquid sympathy for manhole-related tragedies. Kids chant, nearby rhythmic giggles sinking with firefly pulses. Midwifery scrolls claimed unborn children could hear these revelries, shaping their first cries into song. You doubt the science, but those wails do sound suspiciously on key. A new voice slicks through the gaps, sleek as a snake in broth. Told her mixing jasmine rice with glutinous grains invites demonic binding. Your thumb rubs the cup's rim, sensing the potter's wobbled intent. 10th century edicts banned blended rices during lunar eclipses. Not that anyone's checking tonight. Smells weave through the woodwork, fish sauce caramelizing, banana leaves charring, durian wafting its contentious perfume. You've heard tales of thieves lured by frying shallots, their sticky fingers caught in honey traps. Across the Mekong, they swear a spice merchant named Jocker still haunts smokehouses, searching for his perfect blend. The laughter stumbles, suddenly hushed. A grandmother's rasp takes command. Enough about marriages and floods. Tell the one about the talking frog. Teenagers groan, their protests cut short by fermented burps. Your spine sinks into the wall-grain dust, snowing onto your shoulders. 3 toddlers shriek past the storehouse, bare feet slapping mud in chaotic fugue. You catch ghost cat and stolen toe rings before they dissolve into coconut groves. Pre-Angkorian child-rearing manuals advised dunking naughty kids in milled rice grain baths for moral purity. Modern parents prefer bribes. A drunk's voice weeps about his machete, forged by Cam metalsmiths, you know. Murmurs nod, respect paid to steel's pedigree. Legends say twilight hours let blades whisper their origin stories. Yours is a discount knockoff from Phnom Penh. It stays silent out of shame. The feast's heartbeat slows, bell is full, tongues lazy. Someone hums a harvesting tune, the melody warped by missing teeth. You mimic it under your breath, fractured notes dissolving in your throat. Anthropologists found similar lullabies etched on Bronze Age urns. Minus the karaoke reverb, silence pools between distant shouts, a game of vocal hide-and-seek. Frogs croak their approval from flooded paddies. Workers once released them in granaries as living humidity gauges, rivets crescendoing when mold threatened. OSHA never caught on. The cup warms your palm, dregs clinging like resin. A girl's giggle spirals high, unchained, unruly, unbearable in its joy. You press your forehead to the wall, craving and resenting that sound in equal measure. River reeds sway, clattering like skeletal fingers, applauding the night's final act. Shadows stretch your own among them as torches gutter into memory. The storehouse exhales its stored heat days, residue fleeing through thatch. You count 18 fireflies before losing track, or maybe just forgetting why it mattered. Laughter fades, carried downstream on a current of cooled wine. Your last coherent thought: that ox had better be one hell of a metaphor. Moonlight bleeds through the roof slats, striping grain sacks like prison uniforms. The drunk's machete story fades downstream, night reclaiming its throne. You blink, and they're there. 3 wisp-fingered figures kneel by the northeast wall, skeins of hair knotted with chaff. Their hands move in shifts, left palms sifting, right thumbs flicking pebbles into clay bowls. 8th century temple records mention daily sorting quotas, 18 measures per elder before sunset. These ladies are working overtime. One ghost glances up, her eye sockets glint with beetle shells. You freeze mid-breath. She mouths 7 at your direction, a number that'll haunt your grocery lists forever. Old wives swore counting grains after dark summoned ancestor accountants. Turns out they undersold the creep factor. A nailless thumb taps your boot, invitation or warning. You crouch beside the trio, knees popping like rice bubbles. Their baskets exhale smells of mildew and long-dead lemongrass. The tallest one's spine curves like a sickle vertebrae clicking through phantom muscle. 8 rasps the leader, her voice the sound of silk ripping. Husk piles reshuffle, blackened grains leap into her bowl. Some say spoiled rice housed parasitic larvae. Others insisted evil spirits nested in the rot. These gals clearly side with Team Exorcism. Wind sneaks through the storehouse, carrying river reeds and their echoed count. 9 comes the chorus. Your scalp prickles, every hair synced to their rhythm. Pre-Angkor administrators demanded exact tallies, punished shortages with forced lotus root digging. Historians still argue whether their spreadsheets tracked hunger numbers or just royal ego. The closest spectre offers her bowl maggots writhe in the moonlight. You decline with a head shake she doesn't acknowledge. Angkorian midwives used grain counts to predict birth dates. 12 grains per contraction, 37 for breech positions. Modern moms get ultrasounds and bigger parking spots. A cold thumb brushes your wrist, skin tearing like wet papyrus. No blood, just the sting of violated personal space. Murals at Banty CHHMAR show sorters wearing silver nose rings to deter dust ghosts. These ladies skipped accessories, went straight for the haunting. Their chant stutters, 10, 10, 10. Stray kernels roll toward shadows, defectors from the counting cult. One ghost hisses, a sound like steam escaping a grave. You recall legends of granaries, hiding unhatched eggs beneath floorboards, silent alarms against theft. Cracked shells meant intruders, or really ambitious chickens. The leader's jaw unhinges downward like a python's and swallows a pebble whole. Her sisters nod, approving gluttons. Rice riots of 1123 saw peasants boiling watchdogs to stretch grain supplies. Guess protein's protein when the afterlife gets dull. Moonlight shifts, illuminating their baskets. Instead of rice, they now hold teeth, dull incisors, broken molars, a toddler's pearly stray. Your own molars throb in solidarity. Anthropologists debate whether Khmer mortuary rites included dental audits, though this feels like a free exam. 11 sighs the youngest ghost, finger bones combing through your shoelaces. You consider bolting, but where? Midnight protocols say never run from shelf-bound phantoms. Or was that IKEA instructions? Memory blurs when skeleton ladies count your fillings. Their shapes flicker, suddenly reflected in every hanging scythe. Distorted duplicates mouth numbers, 12, 13, a dozen more. Pre-colonial texts warned against metal mirrors in granaries, said they trapped greedy souls in recursive hungers. Samsung's working on an app for that. Dawn's first rooster crow shreds the air. The specters dissolve into grain dust. You're left with a pebble in your palm, veined like an old woman's fist. Floorboards creak, weightless again. The ledger remains balanced until tomorrow's moonrise. Moonlight still licks the scythes, hung like forgotten violins along the east wall. Their curved blades show nicks from 1,000 dawns, each notch mapping a farmer's urgency. You run a thumb along a serrated edge. The metal hums with residual heat. Harvesters once dipped these in Mekong silt before first light, believed to season the steel with river gods' breath. A gecko scurries up the handle of the tallest blade, its tail twitching like a metronome. Dried rice sap crusts the wood, sticky echoes of hands that swung these crescents skyward. 7th century edicts required annual scythe inspections. Blades wider than a royal cubit got taxed as weapons. Guess even farm tools needed passports back then. One blade bears childish scratches, a stick figure family etched near the grip. Rainwater pooled in the grooves has turned the lines green moss thriving in miniature canyons. Historians still argue whether Angkor's child labor laws covered field work, or if kids just got paid in mango slices. You pivot and catch your warped reflection in the steel. Your face stretches thin, a funhouse version with eggplant nostrils. Khmer blacksmiths allegedly quenched scythes in coconut milk, said to prevent rust and angry field spirits. The result, blades that smelled like tropical pancakes during monsoons. A breeze gusts through wall cracks, scythes clink like wind chimes. Their song pitches higher with each gust, a metallic scale climbing toward dawn. Workers timed their swings to these accidental notes, creating a harvest soundtrack of screeches and thunks. Your pinky brushes a blade's spine. The contact sparks a memory that's not yours. Calloused hands, a blister bursting mid-swing, the sweet agony of productivity. Genetic memory, or just sleep deprivation. Either way, your palm itches to grab the handle. The gecko freezes, then darts into a nail hole. Moonlight shifts, revealing faint stains near the blade's tip. Could be ox blood, could be betel nut juice, could be why sanitation scrolls warned against red-flecked tools. You decide not to sniff it. 3 nicks cluster near the edge, a trio of valleys in the steel. Old-timers claimed counting a blade's nicks revealed its kill count, stock slices, not rodents. This one's at 97, either a workhorse or a butterfingers. Dew seeps through the thatch, drops slide down blades like mercury tears. Each bead captures the moon, miniature disco balls for roaches. 13th century poachers supposedly used polished scythes to blind night witchmen. Medieval rave parties got wild. The shortest blade vibrates, a faint drone building in its curve. You lean closer, ear nearly grazing the metal. The sound mimics a monk's throat, chanting, minus the serenity. Vibration worsens, now your fillings ache. A cobweb stretches between 2 handles, its threads weighted with dead gnats. The spider huddles in a corner, legs folded like it's meditating on better career choices. Harvesters used webs like these as makeshift band-aids, free, sticky, and slightly toxin-adjacent. Your shadow stretches across the blades, slicing you into 12 jagged pieces. It feels appropriate. Morning can't be far off, the scythes sense it too. Their hum sharpens a frequency that vibrates your molars. Last month's rice chaff clings to the wall behind them, a fuzzy brown beard on the planks. You pick a husk. It crumbles into powder that smells like burnt popcorn. Night guards reportedly snorted this stuff for focus, ancient Adderall, with more coughing fits. One blade's handle has split held together by bamboo twine and hope. The repair job looks newer, the twine still green. Someone's been here recently, or something. You glance over your shoulder. The storehouse holds its breath. Roosters crow, their screech sawing through the last dregs of dark. The scythes fall silent, just metal again. First light bleeds through the roof, edges of blades glowing red-hot. You absent-mindedly wipe your hands on your shirt, leave rusty streaks like war paint. The floor feels warmer now, sun elbowing through cracks. A bead of sweat rolls down your neck, or is it dew? Doesn't matter. The scythes have tucked their song away, lullaby over. Breakfast awaits, assuming the breakfast isn't you. Damp heat clings to your neck, last loyal soldier of the retreating sun. Rattan walls inhale, their woven gaps, exhaling a breeze that smells of river mud and dried lemongrass. 14th century Khmer builders spaced these reeds precisely 3 fingers between stalks for maximum night chill. Your toes curl in the sudden coolness, like standing ankle deep in a mountain spring. A gecko plops from the ceiling, splatting onto a rice sack with the grace of a drunk acrobat. Days stored warmth oozes from clay jars, their bellies still humming with trapped sunlight. Workers once buried spices under the foundation, turmeric and cardamom, to repel rats. Judging by the claw marks on the threshold, the rodents developed a taste for curry. You press a palm to the east wall. It breathes faster here. Humidity beads on your skin, 1,000 tiny sweat jewels linking into rivulets. Historians still argue whether the checkered wall patterns helped airflow or just gave bored weavers something pretty to eye-roll at. Night air slithers through the cracks, now carrying the sharp sting of fermented fish, paste from distant kitchens. The temperature drop makes your shirt cling, fabric suction to your spine like a remorseful ghost. 13th century ledgers mention ice deliveries from mountain tribes, precious cubes wrapped in banana leaves for fevered nobles. You'd kill for one now. Coolness pools around stacked grain sacks, puddles of shadow lapping at their burlap shores. Hard to believe these walls withstood 700 monsoons, their bamboo ribs flexing, but never snapping. A draft plays hopscotch across your collarbones, each breeze flip-flopping between jungle musk and wood smoke. Something crunches underfoot. You lift your shoe to find a beetle carcass armored in iridescent green. Its legs curl upward, tiny hooks grasping at afterlife regrets. Night guards supposedly pinned these shells to their tunics, living insect armor for spiritual protection. The beetles disagreed violently. Blackened lantern hooks dot the ceiling, their iron twisted into lotus bud shapes. You trace one with your finger, flakes of ancient soot snowing onto your wrist. At dawn, these held oil flames hot enough to melt lead, now just cold metal tongues tasting the dark. Shadows thicken in corners, velvet cloaks thrown over the day's sharp edges. Your breath fogs momentarily, a white flag to the cooling air. 9th century poets compared this nightly shift to Vishnu's breath, gentle exhalations, resetting the world's balance. Feels more like a mischievous ant stuffing ice down your tunic. The last heat, refugees retreat, climbing your legs to huddle at your waist. You sink onto a millet sack, its contents shifting like quicksand beneath you. Rats chitter in the rafters, their debates over tonight's menu drowned by a sudden breeze. Your sweat turns viscous, a tacky second skin as humidity wrestles with the chill. Someone carved a game board into the floor, charbark squares worn smooth by thumbs seeking distraction. Traders from India taught workers this strategy game, crumbs of cultural exchange baked into the grain dust. Palm fronds scritch against the north wall, nature's nail file grating bamboo. Cool air now dominates, sliding down walls to reclaim every sun-warmed surface. You peel your damp shirt from your chest. The fabric makes a sound like stepping on wet clay. Moonlight slices through a high vent, spotlighting a half-eaten mango on a central pillar. Ants march across its flesh, six-legged miners extracting liquid gold. Kitchen boys used to pinch these midnight snacks, sticky fingers betraying them at roll call. The storehouse groans, its timbers contracting like a giant, sighing through clenched teeth. Your teeth chatter once, a misfired protest against the temperature freefall. Rainwater drips somewhere in the darkness, each plink echoing off empty storage jars. Warmth survives in threadbare pockets, crooks of elbows behind your knees, the cradle of your palms. You curl tighter, a human question mark, pondering the appeal of tropical winters. Even the geckos have fled now, off to lecture younger lizards about thermal responsibility. Dawn feels lifetimes away, yet the coolness already softens its grip. First shift workers will arrive soon, yawning, scratching, reigniting the day's furnace with their bustling. For now, you're suspended between empires of heat and chill, a drowsy diplomat negotiating armistice in the sweat-damp dark. The plank bites into your cheek, rough grain imprinting temple to jawline. Something thrums beneath the wood, not your pulse, but deeper. Cyclone low heartbeat of rain, trapped 7 centuries past. Historians say Khmer builders soaked rice store timbers in rice water. Yet another use for their miracle grain. The starch supposedly repelled termites, though the nibbled edges of your listening post suggest mixed results. Wood smoke drifts through cracks, bonfires from the riverbank kitchens seasoning the night air. Your ear canal becomes a resonance chamber. Each amplifies drip sounds into tympanic monsoons. Workers swore swollen rice kernels retained storm memories, shrieking winds trapped in starch cells. Press that thought too long, and you'll hear Arjuna's war chariot rumbling in tomorrow's breakfast porridge. Resin blisters bulge along the plank's edge, amber portals to forgotten storms. One bursts under your thumb, stickiness webbing fingers like a half-formed prayer. Monsoon ghosts, villagers called these sap pockets, sacred gum holding the sky's spilled tears. A niche religious sect still uses them in rain-summoning rituals. Don't ask about the frog chants involved. The scent ambushes you, wet loam and bruised mangosteen. Last week's storm resurrected in your sinuses. Your teeth ache from phantom humidity, that thick-haired grab between downpours. Check your sleeves. No, you're not actually soaked. Yet your skin insists otherwise, goosebumps rising like inverted raindrops. Lightning scars twist through ceiling beams, luminous dendrites frozen mid-fork. Scholars debate if Khmer architects placed these marks intentionally, sacred geometry, connecting grain stores to storm gods. The beetles marching along one charred line seem unimpressed by either theory. A swollen floorboard yields underfoot gloopy creak of cellulose remorse. Someone chiseled grooves here, maybe drainage channels, maybe lunar calendars. 10th century receipts mention rain accountants, tallying storm durations with notched sticks. Imagine explaining that job title at family reunions. Your knee finds a soft spot, wood spongy, with centuries of surrender. Brittle white fungus feathers the depression, the storehouse's attempt at memory foam. Beneath it, hidden carvings, 3 spirals, a leaping fish, what might be a very distressed duck. Historians still argue whether these were sacred symbols or a bored guard's lunchtime scribbles. Dampness climbs your shins, subterranean chill rising through the compacted earth. Underground springs vein the delta, secret tributaries feeding fantasies of basement swimming pools. Your toes curl instinctively against imagined eels. The wall nearest you breathes wetly exuding vapor from yesterday's downpour. Farmers once spread rice under leaking roofs during storms. Let the grain drink straight from heaven's udder. Poetic, until you find weevils in your dinner. A splinter embeds itself in your palm, the storehouse's way of taking notes. You flick it free, watching blood purl where sap once swelled. Monsoons make everything sentimental. Even the wood's retaliation feels like flirtation. Rain's fingerprints cover every surface, warped ledger pages, bloated door jambs, that suspicious stain shaped like Cambodia. Mold blossoms in floral patterns, botanical graffiti commemorating each passing deluge. Botanists identified 17 fungal species. Here tour guides call it the mildew herbarium. Shadows deepen as clouds devour the moon, the dark becoming liquid, suffocating. Visitors from temperate lands always underestimate tropical rains. Think they're just louder drizzles. Then monsoons peel roof tiles off like banana skins, and they reconsider. Thunder growls west of the Mekong, subsonic yawn of a waking leviathan. Workers hung shark teeth from rafters to defy storm demons. Science scoffs until you notice 0 lightning strikes on stored grain. Your shirt's damp spots merge into one sodden declaration of surrender. Condensation beads along bamboo slats, miniature rivers cascading toward oblivion. Catch one on your tongue, it tastes of silt and stolen sunshine. Beneath it all, the rice breathes. 20,000 husked lungs expanding in the moist air. Some claim grains sprout faster if sung to during thunderstorms. Agricultural journals remain skeptical, but the extra sugar in storm-soaked harvests keeps debates juicy. Night stretches taut, a drumhead thrumming with far-off rain. You imagine droplets fossilized in wood resin, each holding a micron of sky. Future archaeologists will lick these planks to taste medieval weather. Don't pretend you wouldn't. Dawn lingers hours away, all spit-shined promises of dryness. For now, the storehouse thrums with pluvious memory, and your socks squelch like overripe fruit with every step. Moonlight takes 15 minutes to find you, slipping through reed gaps as the storm clouds yawn apart. Slivered beams stitch your shadow to the floorboards, needlework in liquid silver. Ancient builders layered cogon grass 3 fingers thick, monsoon-proofing that outlasted dynasties. Your gaze follows the stripes, 18, 19, until a sneeze ruins the count. Thatch creaks above like a ship's rigging, straw fibers swollen with last week's rain. Archaeologists found 9th century love poems woven into similar roofs, romantic declarations doubling as pest deterrents. You squint at the pattern, maybe eternal devotion looks like cross-hatched reeds when you're sleep-deprived. A beam lands on your wrist, cooler than sunlight, thinner than water. Farmers once timed rice planting by how these stripes fell on storage bins. Your big toe discovers a splinter's encore performance, the wood's commentary on amateur astrology. Thatch gaps shrink as the moon climbs, celestial belt tightening across the sky. Workers used to mend roofs during waning phases, believing weakened moonlight encouraged tighter weaving. Your eyelid twitches, fatigue, or sacred lumens doing pest control on your melatonin. Someone carved initials in a beam, Jaya something, their cursive obscured by beetle tracks. Restoration teams argue whether it's a king's signature or a teen's karma-boosting graffiti. You trace the letters, they taste of tamarind and poor life choices. Pale light glazes rice sacks, turning each woven strand into a mercury thread. Full moon harvests were forbidden in some provinces. Locals feared hungry ghosts chewing the grain's soul. Your stomach growls. Apparently apparitions aren't the only ones craving midnight snacks. The 19th stripe dims, clouds threatening encore showers. Historians still argue whether the thatch gaps formed intentional lunar calendars or just generations of rats practicing vegetarianism. A cockroach scuttles across the debate, unimpressed by human grids on sacred light. Grandmothers whispered that babies born under 19-stripe moonlight became master rice breeders. Though skeptics note correlated cricket fights, you inhale starch-scented air, wondering if genius smells like forgotten rice cakes. One beam lands in your open palm, fluorescence pooled like quicksilver. 9th century tax records mention villages taxed by the moon's share of storehouse light. Your fingers close, capturing nothing but damp illusion. Tax collectors probably carried lanterns. Shadows condense into puddles as clouds regroup, the roof's light show flickering toward intermission. Meteorologists would weep at the humidity. Your shirt, now a second skin, rehearsing for amphibian life. That splinter spot throbs, pulse synced to the vanishing stripes. Frogs croak a dirge outside, moisture's fan club rallying for round 3. You count beams by touch now, each ridge a braille report on the storm's plans. 18. Or is this groove, Stripe's ghost? Dawn feels theoretical, a rumor told by fireflies. Your knees creak as you rise, wood imprints tattooing patellas, with roof gap constellations. The moon ducks behind monsoon reinforcements, its final beam lancing through a spiderweb. For 3 breaths, the silk glows like disco fuse wire. You pocket the vision, one more relic for this wooden reliquary. Somewhere, a rice sack ripples, stirred by air too lazy to become wind. The storehouse licks its chops, ready to dissolve you into its vitamin-rich dark. The splinter's encore throbs a metronome for the new rhythm beneath your feet. At first you mistake it for monsoon drips, then realize the scratching moves counter to the rain's beat. Claws tap dance across bamboo slats, a dozen manicurists working the floor's underbelly. You freeze mid-yawn, lips still parted, as a whiskered snout breaches a knothole. 2 more follow, their noses testing air thick enough to chew. 8th century storekeepers laid terracotta rings around granary pillars, rat deterrents glazed with chilly resin. The current residents seem unimpressed by ancient pottery. They emerge like a fur tide, each paw step precise as a monk's sandal. Temple carvings show rats nibbling Shivas, offerings first, an honor guard against poison sweets. Their descendants practice the same ritual, sampling moldy rice cakes with sacramental focus. Not theft, sacrament. 9 rodents form a furry conveyor belt, passing stolen grain mouth to mouth toward a crack in the west wall. Historians still argue whether Khmer rice logs tracked rodent populations, or if those claw-shaped stamps commemorated something darker. You watch the line undulate, a slinky made of hunger and fur. One pauses to sniff your toenail, its breath warm as fermented rice wine. Angkor apprentices supposedly drank rat-gnawed barley tea to cure cowardice. The beast sneezes, your little toe now baptized in rodent disapproval. They work without greed, each nibble measured, each kernel stored with the efficiency of an IRS office. A pup tries absconding with a husk thrice its size. An elder swats it with a tail. Monastic discipline, furry edition. The conveyor belt vanishes, floorboards creaking their relief. Only the chubbiest rat remains, grooming itself like a French aristocrat. Research papers propose ancient Cambodian rats had semi-divine status, based entirely on a single inscription about tooth-marked blessings. The scholar clearly never smelled rat piss, aged 3 centuries. Moonlight returns, sliding a silver platter under the remaining rodent. It rises on hind legs for 3 seconds. The world has a tiny, furry king. Then it bolts, overripe mangosteen rolling from a rotten basket. Silence recomposes itself, stitched with cricket thread. Your bladder votes to relocate. Ancestral fear of rodent royalty lingers in the prostate. But the Khmer Rouge reportedly weaponized rats in 78. A thought that kills the punchline before it reaches your lips. Dew seeps through the walls, washing paw prints into spectral ink. You count heartbeats instead of moon stripes now, 37, 38, until a new sound hijacks the rhythm, delicate crunching, like a librarian eating celery. Replacement rats have arrived, their teeth bleaching in the moon's spotlight. The night cycle continues, a pagan Eucharist where everyone gets communion. Your toes prune in rice-scented dampness. The splinter relents, splitting into a tiny wooden rose blooming under your skin. 12 rats watch you scratch it, their eyes gleaming like tax auditors, spotting a deduction. Dawn remains a myth authored by optimistic roosters. Somewhere beneath your left heel, a rice beetle hums Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries in ultrasonic. The rats prick their ears, then resume nibbling in 4/4 time. Your tongue finds salt on cracked lips, born from breezes crossing the Gulf of Thailand centuries back. Each grain at your feet remembers monsoon nurseries, oxen-plowed furrows, sickle blades singing in peasant hands. Rice isn't food here. It's a Braille chronicle. You kneel, fingers sinking into a sack's belly. Kernels tumble over your knuckles, cool as river stones. Angkor's kings stockpiled rice for droughts, but modern lasers proved their granaries leaked like sieves. Those rulers probably blamed the rats. A husk clings to your thumbnail, its ridges mirroring Angkor Wat's bas-reliefs. Historians still argue whether temple carvers copied rice patterns for their art, or if farmers cultivated grains to mimic sacred stonework. The debate feels moot as you flick it into shadows, where 7 beetles commence a theological debate over its origin. 3 grains roll into your palm's crease, pale as the moon, dented like thumbprints. 8th century tax records mention black rice for the sacred horses, though no steeds could digest volcanic glass. Turns out palace bureaucrats codenamed concubines luxury meals. Who says tax fraud is modern? You crush a kernel between molars. Starch floods your mouth with silt and lotus pollen. The taste outlives empires. Researchers found 600-year-old rice DNA in Lao cave dirt, every sample genetically identical to tonight's harvest. Ancestors whispering through chlorophyll. Dust rises in protest, each particle a snapshot. Here a fleck from a farmer's blistered heel. There, ash from the 1922 warehouse fire that villagers blame on jealous river spirits. Your nostrils prickle with phantom smoke and fish scale fertilizer. A beetle cartwheels past, legs pedaling an invisible unicycle. Its ancestors attended Angkorian coronations, or so claims a 1984 entomology paper, retracted after methodological hallucinations. Still, you salute its lineage with a cupped hand bow. Light shifts, moonbeams now slanting through gaps in the thatch. 5 stripes across the rice mounds, turning each hill into a furrowed manuscript. You spell your name in grains, then erase it before the storehouse judges your ego. Wind sneaks through a cracked window lattice, shivering the lanterns. Their light licks a stone mortar half buried in the corner. The Khmer Rouge tried smashing such relics during agrarian reforms. Unaware the stones outlived all their policies, something clinks, your heel dislodges a terracotta shard glazed blue-green. Dutch traders swore Khmer potters used crushed jade, until chemists found malachite smuggled from Borneo. The sea gives, the monsoon takes. You press the pottery edge to your wrist, cool, faintly salty. Flesh resists etching. Production quotas demanded 10 jars per kiln, but potters slipped extras into fires, non-compliant vessels fat with rebellion. Tonight it's just a rock. Dampness rises, draping the rice in muslin-thick air. Moisture blurs scent, yet the grain's musk persists. 19th century French colonizers called this aroma patty stink, while local wives sewed rice sachets into wedding pillows for fertility. Both sides missed the point. A frog plops into the granary, then freezes at your stare. Its throat pulses with offenses. Rice frogs were considered rain prophets until meteorologists proved they just hated humidity. The fugitive backflips into shadows, defenestrated by choice. Moonlight baptizes the central pillar, its wood split like old leather. Dendrochronology, nerds dated this timber to 1213 CE. The same year, a Chinese envoy described Khmer rice cakes as sweeter than concubine size. Priorities transcend time. You lean back, a sack molds itself to your spine. Centuries of compression turned these fibers into stone-soft hybrids. Tax collectors weighed grain here using bronze elephants, now rusting in the Mekong's belly. Your spine becomes the new measure. Daybreak remains a rumor. 3 geckos skitter across the ceiling, playing tag over your head. Their ancestors dodged imperial tax assessors in these same rafters. The game outlasts the empire. Your eyelids droop, the room breathes in reverse. Air flows up your nostrils, thick with memory. 17 distinct mold spores colonize your sinuses, each a historian debating rice myths. You let them lecture. Dawn's first rooster croaks a half-hearted reveille. The storehouse ignores it, holding you in edible amber. Grains shift imperceptibly, settling into shapes that, for one blurred moment, resemble your mother's face. Work calls. Breakfast waits. But here, among the breathing mounds, you're already fed. Your toe nudges a warp thread dangling from the leaning loom. It hums low like a plucked bass string. The half-woven cloth hangs frayed and expectant. A geometric poem in indigo and betel nut red. Traditional Khmer ikat patterns mapped star paths for ancestor spirits, though this design suggests a drunk cartographer. You crouch, fingering a snarl where the weaver abandoned ship. The warp beams still hold tension. as if the textile might finish itself come solstice. 9th century court records mention looms confiscated from rebellious villages, their patterns allegedly encoding anti-tax messages in zigzag motifs. Nice try, proto-graffiti artists. A spider claims the shuttle as it's thrown, legs splayed across the rusted metal. Its silk weaves through abandoned cotton strands, collaborating across millennia and species. Historians still argue whether unfinished textiles served as spirit gateways or just lazy crafters blaming artistic visions. The spider offers no testimony. You blow dust off the breast beam, uncovering fingerprints preserved in rice-based sizing. Each whorl mirrors the Mekong's delta tributaries. Colonial looters dismissed such looms as primitive, until radiocarbon dating placed this cotton older than Notre Dame's foundation. Eat your beret, France. Moonlight stripes the warp chains, 19 parallel rivers of yarn. Your shadow stretches the partial pattern into completion. A tiger's face, merging with lotus blooms. Restoration teams found similar hybrid motifs in Angkor Thom's sewers. Flushed during that time, the king banned mixed metaphors. The reed leans askew, its bamboo teeth gnawed by silverfish. Each dent corresponds to a prayer chant syllable. Or so swore a 1960s ethnomusicology student before his advisor quit. You wrap the comb, it drones a C-sharp lament. Under the loom, a ceramic bowl crusted with pigment. Tadpole tails still squirm in dried indigo sludge. Your nail chips the glaze, revealing kiln number 7's mark from the seam reap workshops. They produced 16 bowls per firing, but nuns always slipped a 17th for the weaver's thirsty ghost. 3 dropped Heddle's nest in the dirt, wooden soldiers rooted from battle. Their cracked holes stare up, a Stonehenge of abandonment. You thread one onto your pinky. It whispers of arthritis and midnight palm wine binges. A skein of golden thread coils beneath the treadles, its sheen undimmed by rat urine. Malayan trade manifests list sun yarn shipments to Angkor, provenanced from Cambodian silks, extinct golden moth breed. You loop a strand around your wrist, it severs itself like mist. The cloth selvage flares unexpectedly, a chaotic tumble of saffron triangles. 16th century weavers inserted deliberate errors to trap evil in crooked lines. Modern museum labels prefer calling it stylized abstraction. You poke the flaw, it pulses like a carotid. Your knees crack as you rise, the loom creaks in solidarity. The heddle dangles from your finger, then plummets into dust. Someone's unfinished symphony of thread becomes your momentary wind chime. Outside geckos improvise jazz percussion on bamboo gutters. The loom absorbs their rhythm, rocking its frame in quarter time. You imagine the absent weaver's hands, calloused fingertips, counting beats between pedal depressions. Moonlight fades, the pattern's secret dissolves into shadow. Historians still argue whether Khmer weavers worked sober. The loom guards its dead masters, BAC, like a state secret. A moth alights on the cloth's edge, wings echoing the missing motif. Its proboscis probes stained threads, seeking nectar in cellulose. You grant it squatter's rights. Dawn licks the eastern window. The unfinished textile drinks morning's red light. What began as a rice stalk pattern bleeds into poppy fields. The loom won't judge if you pretend not to notice. You step back. The half-cloth flaps like a captured flag. Commerce or sacrament, rebellion or resignation. The spiders continue weaving their own answer overhead, treble clefs, in silk cursive. The loom's vanished weaver left more than half-finished cloth. Her ledger shows 19 jars buried beneath the reed mat. Your fingernail scrapes hardened resin sealing the last pot, its surface blistered with tiny handprints. Fermenting rice exhales through the cracks, a sweet rot stink that clings to your sinuses. 9th century tax scrolls ordered storehouses to pickle moldy surpluses as emergency rations. A culinary gamble, even rats avoided. You pry the lid, black sludge bubbles like magma. It smells of forgotten gym socks and overripe jackfruit with a top note of apology. Colonial botanists mistook these jars for sewage urns until their local assistants wisely refused to toss them. The muck glistens, veins of white mold branching like delta maps. They say the guardian spirit stirs each vat at midnight, her nails caked in transformative decay. A wet plop echoes from the rafters, dripping rot splatters your shoulder. Above, crumbling rice cakes crust the beams like wasp nests. Something up there breathes, a rasping inhale that makes lantern flames bow. Your village guide mentioned a widow's ghost, upholding Angkor's food safety codes, eternal expiration date enforcer. The sludge shifts, an amber droplet oozes over the jar's rim. Touch it, go on. Your fingertip comes away gleaming, liquid honey sprouting fur. Medieval Cambodian medical texts prescribed fermented rice mold for arrow wounds, and possibly caused more fatalities than the arrows. The substance quivers on your skin, alive, hungry, oddly polite. Cobwebs tremble in a sourceless breeze, their silk threads thrumming a nursery rhyme. You catch whispers of a lullaby. Rot the grain, salt the tongue, bless the blight, feed the young. Records from Ta Prohm Temple describe harvested mold being ritually buried during monsoon moons. Food safety meets necromancy. A shadow pools at your feet, darker than the surrounding night. It sprouts hag fingers coiling up your ankles, chilly as cellar water. Historians still argue whether such rites prevented famine or simply made rotten rice less lethal. The sludge jar starts singing, a gurgling basso profundo that vibrates your molars. You step back, the guard's spirit's breath coils around your neck. It reeks of probiotic betrayal, kombucha's evil twin. Khmer folktales warn she shoves arrogance down throats as black porridge, a Michelin-starred threat. Your flashlight beam catches mold blooming across the ceiling, paisleys of contamination. Something sluices through nearby grain sacks, wet and deliberate. The spirit's hair, a mycelium tendril, both. It brushes your wrist, leaving a snail trail of enzymes. Modern mycology journals would duel for that sample, assuming it doesn't eat through petri dishes. The jar's contents erupt. A fungal geyser hits the rafters. Spores glitter in the lantern light. A malignant Milky Way. You recall reading about 12th century emergency nuptials. Brides force-fed moldy rice to survive village food shortages. Romance ain't dead, just fermenting in the corner. Moonlight catches a silhouette crouched in the debris, joints creaking like bamboo in a storm. She's composting stolen offerings, kneading mold into briquettes that smell like caramelized doom. 7 ceramic bowls float around her, each containing failed harvests from 7 generations. Your eyes water ammonia, and cloying sweetness wage chemical warfare. 16th century poets likened her to a drunk pastry chef, if bakeries specialized in ecological guilt. She turns the face beneath the mold veil, is all gums and benign disappointment. A sack ruptures, rice pours across the floor like ceramic shrapnel. The grain writhes, each kernel sprouting wispy hyphae legs. Your guidebook said nothing about mycological uprising. She flings a spore cluster. It bursts into pollen that tastes like apology letters. The spirit licks her palm, slurping enzymes like udon noodles. Rural midwives once used her slime to pickle umbilical cords, sacred probiotic starter cultures. You mentally draft a Yelp review. Atmospheric decay, innovative textures, wouldn't revisit, but haunts creatively. Sludge overflows. The smell graduates from gym locker to biological crime scene. Your shoes dissolve at the toes, free exfoliation included. She belches, an octave lower than humanly possible, and vaults into the roof thatch. Historians still argue whether thatch absorbs sins or just mildew. Dawn leaks through the walls. Her spores retreat from the light. You find a dried lotus pod in your pocket, seeds replaced with fuzzy green surrender flags. The guardian's laughter taints the sunrise, a resonant gloat that curdles breakfast plans. Stumbling into daylight, you realize the storehouse breathed its rot into your clothes. Villagers will smell you coming, a walking homage to the guardian's craft. Maybe she'll appreciate the fan art. Maybe she'll mail you more spores. Daylight clings to your rancid shirt, a perfume no spice market could replicate. Villagers scatter like roaches when you approach, their nose wrinkling a silent verdict. Even stray dogs pause mid-piss to reconsider your vibe. You trudge past ox carts piled with fresh rice, their drivers muttering charms against fungal curses. Under a beetle nut tree's shade, time congeals. Ants march across your boot, taking 93 minutes to traverse the leather. A dropped mango rots in fast forward beside your heel, pulp exploding into maggot confetti. The Khmer Empire built celestial clocks tracking lunar cycles. But this This is chronology's midlife crisis. Shadows refuse to creep. Noon sun burns a hole in the sky, stuck like a jammed roller coaster cart. Your watch sweats rust, its gears clogged with amber gunk from the storehouse. That free exfoliation now feels like a pyramid scheme. Your toenails have achieved sentience. A child lobs a tamarind pod at you. It arcs through air thicker than rice porridge. The fruit trebuchet's flight path defies physics. Or maybe just your perception of it. Historians still debate if Angkor's architects designed granaries to warp time. Concrete evidence dissolved into monsoon mud. You lick parched lips, tasting yesterday's spore cloud. It whispers forgotten lunch recipes. Simmered rat, 3 mold varieties, serve with existential dread. Your stomach groans in a dialect last spoken by 9th century compost priests. A fly lands on your wrist. Or maybe it's been there since breakfast. Its wings flutter at quarter speed. A zither song drowned in molasses. French colonial reports mention workers napping in granaries and aging decades overnight. But those files reek of opium and racist fan fiction. Cicadas drone like broken theremins, their buzz stretching into low-frequency threats. You count 7 heartbeats per breath. Or is it 7 breaths per heartbeat? Rice terraces shimmer in the distance, waist-high stalks undulating in a breeze you can't feel. Sweat crawls down your spine, individual droplets mapping your vertebrae like disappointed tourists. That guardian spirit's snort reverberates in your molars. A geologic chuckle. Pre-Angkorian texts describe stillness feasts where nobles competed to sit motionless for weeks. Grandma's yoga challenge on steroids. Your left pinky goes numb. Or maybe it's just bored. Shadows finally twitch, but they're sliding sideways. A passing monk freezes mid-stride his sandal, hovering over a dog-turd masterpiece. Folklore claims sleeping in rice chambers let rulers commune with past harvests, and probably gave them terminal athlete's foot. Sunlight thickens into syrup, gilding your eyelashes into weighted curtains. You attempt to scream. It emerges as a yawn moan. The village wells pulley creaks, a whale song from hell's laziness dimension. Archaeologists found 600-year-old rice wine in burial urns, which explains the skeleton's party hats. Time puddles around your ankles, each second a lotus root sucking at your soul. You've become a human sundial, if sundials oozed regret and toenail fungus. Farmers swear full granaries slow the moon's orbit, which tracks given tonight feels like a tax audit. Dusk arrives via guilt trip, sky-blushing pews. As the sun slinks off, fireflies drag their glowing asses past bioluminescent pensioners on their final shift. Your stomach audibly quotes Sartre. Hell is other people's fermentation experiments. The first star emerges, or maybe it's a spore masquerading as celestial decor. You try standing, your knees protest like rusted hinges in a haunted piano. Historians still argue whether Khmer time distortion was spiritual art or mold-induced mass psychosis. Either way, dinner's canceled, your teeth have started growing moss. Moonrise brings merciful movement, shadows snapping back into their lanes. A gecko scampers up the beetle trunk, normal speed, shockingly rude. Villagers re-emerge with torches, their flames reeking of pine resin and performance anxiety. Your watch ticks, a metronome for reality's lukewarm return. Time's back on the clock, but you're pretty sure it's holding a grudge. Rain-soaked ledger pages stick to your palms, their ink bleeding into Rorschach storms. Each mildew-blurred column whispers flood math. 43 days of downpour, reduced to chicken scratch numerals. You squint at water stains, mimicking Cambodia's, to lay sap like nature's smirk at human record-keeping. A cockroach scuttles across estimated rice yields, its legs tracing the Angkorian engineers. Failed calculus, they channeled monsoons into reservoirs through canals, exact as piano strings, until silt clogged the melody. Historians still argue whether these ledgers tracked harvests or predicted celestial floods, the numbers too ambiguously divine. Your thumbnail digs into a wine-dark splotch, 18th century Merlot, or dried buffalo blood. Either way, it flakes like edible history. Mold patterns form Pythagorean triples between entries, fungal scholars debating agrarian theorems. Damp air thickens into a wet gag. Each breath tastes of rotting papyrus and existential back taxes. August's 69 lost baskets glow crimson on the page, a haiku of bureaucratic despair. You inhale sharply and regret it. The stench of 9 centuries, bad bookkeeping, curdles your sinuses. Moonlight reveals thumbprints in the margins, farmers' ghosts, still disputing their grain quotas, their protests ossified into cellulose and lampblack. A gecko licks the numeral 7 clean, contesting the tax rate with its sticky tongue. Water stains bloom anew across parchment, phantom storms brood from your own sweat. The Khmer Empire's hydrology mastery melts under modern humidity, gravity, and mildew collaborating on revisionist history. A torn page clings to your wrist, its fractured date, 1271, 1327. Dissolving into pulp, you become an accidental archivist, preserving records by wearing them as second skin. Midnight's chill resurrects the ink. Fractions writhe like mating eels, denominators devouring numerators in inky cannibalism. That cheerful mold keeps recalculating losses. 69 baskets become 73, 94. A century of hunger in spiraling glyphs. Dawn finds you parsing rainfall through body aches, each joint a barometer. Your left knee predicts afternoon showers. Right elbow insists on hail. Monsoon math was simpler when numbers stayed on paper, not etched into vertebrae. Ledger lines blur with your lifeline, both trending downward since breakfast. You attempt division. Priorities divided by exhaustion equals questionable life choices. The cockroach waves its antennae in mock sympathy, then files your despair under ongoing agricultural deficits. Mildew outperforms Sanskrit here, its gray blooms colonizing royal decrees. A sneeze sends revenue reports fluttering. Ghost accountants cluck their budgetary disapproval. That fractal mold now spells repent in Khmer numerals, or maybe resign. Dust motes settle the debate, voting with gravitational indifference. Your stomach computes its own equations. Hunger squared minus available rat meat equals existential pie. Historians might someday study these coffee rings, interpreting them as lunar eclipse charts. The last legible number floats away, a 26, dissolving into spider silk. You watch it ascend, joining the ranks of unverified data haunting academia. Sunlight finally incinerates the mold's math, leaving only the scent of unanswered questions and decomposing flax. Rain begins its fresh audit, each drop recalculating the storehouse's worth. You close the ledger, its cover sighing like a tax collector denied overtime. Monsoon arithmetic continues unchecked, 69 baskets, always morphing. 69 aftermaths written in root and rot. Morning cooks the books, humidity erasing debits and credits alike. Your fingers leave saline commas in the steam, temporary annotations for tomorrow's scholars to misread. The guardian spirit hums a counting song, her melody converting famine into folklore, loss into lullaby. Cicadas resume their abacus-click rhythm, subtracting seconds from what remains of your attention span. Numbers dance just beyond comprehension, pirouetting into the sweet relief of innumeracy. The ledger seals itself, mold binding pages with grudging finality. You walk away calculating nothing, and somehow the village still stands. The planks sigh underfoot, a woody exhale from 800 monsoons trapped in grain-splintered oak. Your soles hover between two timelines, modern sneaker treads, suspended above footprints sunk deep by Angkor-era basket carriers. Archaeologists found similar grooves in Bayon temple steps. Khmer engineers designing floors to cradle both rice sacks and eternity. Dust rises in slow spirals, not debris, but decomposed harvests too stubborn to quit. Each particle carries 3 kings, lost edicts, and a peasant's splinter under their thumbnail. You kneel, palm flat on wood worn softer than a monk's prayer mat. The grain's direction surprises, planks laid against the timber's natural curve to deter termites, someone's clever hack before sustainable architecture became a museum plaque. Fingertips skate along a trough carved by endless heel strikes. Historians still argue whether these grooves mark mundane labor or sacred processions, the difference between a callus and a hymn. Your nail catches on a hairline split. It hums with residual foot traffic, the C-sharp whine of 14th century rush hours. A beetle emerges from its bark cathedral armor, glazed with cellulose dust. It pauses, antennae tasting sweat from your wrist. Khmer rice gods allegedly rode chariots pulled by six-legged steeds. This one seems unimpressed, scuttling into a crack like a contractor late for dry rot repairs. Splinters tell time here older than your bones, younger than the Nile's first irrigation ditches. Press your ear to the wood. The pulse comes slow and swamp-thick groundwater, whispering through fossilized root systems. In Jawa Island's ruins, researchers found child footprints preserved in a temple's wet plaster. You wonder if some harried parent paused here too, scolding a toddler for kicking rice piles. Their frustration now varnished into folklore. Shifting your weight triggers a xylophone creak, the floor singing in pentatonic decay. This timber once drank Cambodian sunrises, photosynthesis transmuted into cellulose, then into a hive for dragonflies fleeing 19th century typhoons. Your knees protest, modern joints clashing with agrarian ergonomics. The original floor engineers clearly never attended a single Zoom yoga class. A termite queen's abandoned tunnel system maps the wood's despair, its labyrinthine boreholes mirroring Angkor's own collapse. You blow across the surface, centuries of pollen launch into rebellion. Sneezes echo off rat-gnawed rafters, a sound that once startled apprentices stealing midnight moon grain. Damp patches bloom beneath your palms, not water, but resin wept from long-dead sapwood. It clings like congealed twilight, amber made from sundown tears. Trade records mention Khmer ships hauling timber so resin-rich. Sailors used planks as emergency torches. This board's light died centuries ago, its only flame now the glowworm drifting through your peripheral vision. Pressure gradients shift as night deepens, the floor contracting like lungs after held breath. Wood remembers humidity expanding until it becomes geography. You trace a knot hole worn smooth by generations of big toes. Call it the world's slowest lithograph, a census of barefoot archivists who paused here, assessing the grain tide. Moonlight etches your shadow into the boards, a temporary layer in the strata. One day, dendrochronologists will carbon date your dandruff alongside pollen from Genghis Khan's horse pastures. The thought almost makes you tidy up. Almost. Moss reclaims the northwest corner, a fuzzy green algorithm calculating how soon everything returns to loam. You scrape a thumbnail through velvet growth, exposing wood still stained indigo from some long-spilled ceremonial dye. 17 generations of beetles have debated its origin story over family brunches. When you rise, the planks release you reluctantly, popping like joints after meditation. Static clings to your jeans, fabric charged by reluctant dust divorce. The floor resumes its incremental return to forest, each creak a tree stretching in its sleep. Walking away feels rude, like exiting a cathedral mid-prayer, but the wood stops noticing after 3 steps, already forgetting your weight as it plots its next exhalation. Centuries pass differently here, patient and unimpressed, your presence just another season sweating its brief claim. Termites resume their chewing, tiny jaws rewriting timber into tomorrow's fertile dusk. The termite's chewing fades, replaced by rustling leather above. You glance up. Shapes flit through rafters like inverted pendulums. Bats, always working the night shift without benefits. Their wings whisper, brushing air molecules into payroll spreadsheets. One swoops near, its furred face all business. You half expect a tiny clipboard. They dart in grid patterns, living barcode scanners, tallying rice sacks. 23 passes over the northeast quadrant. 47 clicks bounced off millet stores. Their echolocation lattices map the granaries worth down to the last grain. Modern logistics. AI wishes it had this resolution. A pup clings to its mother mid-flight, dragged through inventory audits before weaning. Khmer rice vaults once hired human grain counters who memorized stacks in koan-like chants. These bats inherited the job when monks realized rodents respected wings more than abacuses. The colony's collective clicks form a chorus, ultrasonic ledger entries encoded in squeaks. Archaeocaustics teams once tried recording similar bat vocalizations at pre-con temple. The data corrupted all their drives, as if the bats were copywriting their spreadsheets. You catch a whiff of guano, sharp ammonia, undercut by earthiness. Not entirely unpleasant, like a punk rocker's kombucha brewery. Historians still argue whether Khmer royals used bat dung as crop fertilizer or sacred incense. Either way, it definitely improved the soil's resume. Wings graze your hair, a trainee bat miscalculating ceiling clearance. Its echolocation pings your skull, approximating you as a squishy, slightly salty pillar. The species is Myotis ridlei, named after that Victorian explorer who catalogued moths using only whiskey and self-loathing. A gout of bats swirls toward a sagging rice pile, recounting its volume through synaptic math. Their sound waves penetrate burlap, mapping weevil infestations like tiny TSA agents. You wonder if they judge the grain quality. Third-rate barley, Brenda, dock the manager's bonus. Mothers leave pups dangling from ceiling hooks, furry interns awaiting training modules. The babies squeak in protest, their voices still audible to human ears. Puberty will grant them the ultrasonic range needed for proper corporate espionage. Your flashlight catches a bat mid-sneeze, its whole body convulsing like a fuzzy airship malfunction. They're allergic to human dandruff, apparently an evolutionary twist, nature's way of saying, this audits a too-hanky job. Droppings pepper the floor, calcified receipts of meals consumed. Researchers found similar guano layers under Angkor's West Barre, proof that bats tracked imperial rice reserves long before tax ledgers existed. Each pellet contains beetle wings indigestible to all but the hungriest archivists. The colony's pulse quickens, dawn shifts the algorithmic rhythm. They've logged 3,412 sacks-ish. Margin of error one tipsy field mouse. As light bleeds through the thatch, the bats funnel into a crack winged accountants clocking out for sunrise margaritas. Silence reclaims the rafters, the granary's stock now quantified in evaporated squeaks. You check your pockets, half expecting a bat-printed invoice for services rendered. The night's tally lingers, encrypted in air too high-pitched for mortal debts. Your eyelids tug downward, warring against the faint lantern glow. Every blink lasts longer frames of darkness spliced into reality. The storehouse sighs through its timbers, a lullaby older than Angkor Wat's foundation rites. You slump against a teak pillar, its curves cradle your spine like a parent's palm. Drowsiness pools behind your knees, liquid and warm. Historians note Khmer granaries, often doubled as communal nap zones during harvest exhaustion. Workers would snooze between rice mounds, dreaming of cooler monsoon drafts, a frugal empire's answer to vacation days. A yawn cracks your jaw, your breath merging with the building's moist exhales. Some scholars swear these structures were designed as giant resonators, amplifying the soporific hum of fermentation. They point to wall angles matching 12th century sleep chamber blueprints. Architects still bicker whether it's intentional genius or mold-induced coincidence. Your hand grazes a sack each rice kernel hums with stored sunlight. 16,900 and 4 plants per pound. Or maybe that's your brain short-circuiting. The math slips away, numbers dissolving into pre-dream static. Fringe sleep theorists claim grains retain farmers' fatigue like batteries. Tonight, you almost believe them. Shadows thicken, the lanterns dimming without any hand to tend them. Your pulse syncs with the storehouse's creaks, 2 rhythms braiding into one. They say King Jayavarman VII's astrologers napped here to receive divine crop visions. Their dreams dictated planting seasons, agriculture by REM cycle. A gecko's chirp splinters the haze, your head lolls toward empty air. Blink. The floor feels closer now, packed earth, inviting as a feather bed. Wood smoke from distant huts weaves through your thoughts, embroidering half-formed memories of other twilights. Your knees buckle gracefully, inevitably. No crash, just a slow melt into dust silt and bamboo weave. Archaeologists found similar impressions at Banti Chhmar, centuries of worker shapes pressed into clay. You're just the latest tenant in a long lineage of collapse. The ceiling blurs, thatch becoming a thatch-shaped cloud. Strange how ancestral fatigue feels borrowed, like returning a library book 5 generations overdue. Your breath deepens, drawing in spores from 10,000 forgotten naps. Coolness seeps through your shirt, the nights chill gentler than any blanket. Somewhere, a rice goddess yawns her marble eyelids, lowering in a seam reap museum. The guards won't notice until dawn. Silence wraps your skull, a blindfold spun from cobwebs and moth wings. The last coherent thought fizzles, something about capillary action in sleeping brains, then nothing but the granary's wooden heartbeat and the forgiving weight of borrowed sleep. The earth breathes beneath you, a submerged rhythm older than the temple moats. Your cheek presses into cool clay, feeling vibrations in teeth and temples. Scholars mapped the Tonle Sap's seasonal floods, nature's pulse nourishing Khmer rice empires for 800 years. Yet none charted these secret currents, veins threading beneath storehouse floors. Dampness seeps through your sleeve, a whisper against skin. Some claim colonial-era French researchers heard liquid murmurs through brass stethoscopes. Here, their reports dismissed as malaria hallucinations. You need no instruments. The soil thrums like a frog's throat, each tremor rippling up your forearm. Knees sinking deeper now, earth becoming porous as sponge cake. Historians still argue whether these waterways were accidental or carved by 9th century hydraulic monks. Your fingers curl into the ground, meeting resistance that isn't stone. Something wooden, ribbed, deliberately buried. A root, pipe. Your nail scrapes moss from its curve, smell of wet teak and iron. Morning glory vines snake through cracks, their stems taut as violin strings. Pluck one, and does it hum? The storehouse shifts, settling into its eternal crouch. Water's presence explains the swollen grain sacks, the perpetually friable air. You imagine silt filtering through 8 feet of history, rice kernels bloating with ancestral groundwater. That French madman was right, an engineer who drank nothing but nighttime dew. He swore the granary floated on an underground seam reap. Something glints in your peripheral vision, a beetle's wing catching stray moonlight. No glass, a buried bottleneck emerging like a shy reptile. 19th century cognac, medicinal opium tincture. The earth swallows it again, reclaiming its secrets with a wet gulp. Palm flat on the ground now, the pulse syncs with your carotid artery. 2 organisms sharing one heartbeat. You remember Angkor's reservoirs aligning with celestial cycles, monsoon math etched in stone. This feels older, more mammalian. A bubble breaks the surface, scent of fern rot and minerals. The mythical Neek-Ta spirits were said to dwell in such places, their bodies half clay, half carp scales. Your thumbnail traces the receding waterline, leaving a darker stripe in damp soil. When the Khmer Rouge repurposed these granaries, did they feel the tremor? Or were they too busy not starving? The question sours in your mind, inappropriate for this liquid hour. You let it sink, joining rusted plowshares and broken water clocks below. Dawn feels theoretical now, a rumor from some parallel, well-rested world. Your cochlea fills with subterranean echoes, the gurgle of aquifers making nonsensical small talk. A blind fish brushes your mental hull, its scales imprinted with Pallava script. Weightless minutes pool around your hips. They say every Khmer rice field mirrors the star patterns monks observed in 802 CE. If true, then this dripping maze beneath you, these secret rivers, must flow upside down constellations. a mirror cosmos for mold and root hair. Your pinky finger finds a crevice, water rising to greet it. Centuries of laborers trod this floor, unaware of the cool tongue beneath their calluses. Or were they? Maybe their heel blisters formed maps, contour lines for this hidden watershed. A mosquito drinks from your wrist, too sleepy to swat. Let it carry your isotopes down into the dark. You'll become legend, some future researcher's organic trace anomaly. The Earth's heartbeat slows, or is that you fading? No difference now, granary and guest. Both just vessels waiting to be filled. The first firefly arrives as a hesitation, a green hyphen blinking twice before committing to your presence. Others follow, 87 by your foggy count, each tracing cursive paths through storehouse shadows. Historians note Angkor's priests once read prophecies in bioluminescent beetle swarms, their holy PowerPoint slides. You squint at the nearest flicker, its abdomen pulsing Morse code, or maybe a grocery list. Apologies for the monsoon, it seems to spell. Regretfully yours, the rainy season. A winged semicolon lands on your knee, its glow revealing lotus pollen caked in your cuticles. Those French colonial types tried bottling these lights. 19 vials shipped to Paris Insectarium in 1923. All arrived dead. Turns out Khmer fireflies refuse to perform under corked conditions. Divas of the arthropod world. One drifts near your ear, its buzz translating as sorry about the rice weevils. The swarm condenses, forming a floating sentence too fast to parse. You catch belated condolences and unpaid grain debts before it disintegrates. Historians still argue whether 14th century villagers actually mailed rice paper notes via beetle couriers. The evidence: a single Sanskrit scroll describing glowing envoys with six-legged sighs. A bold firefly alights on your thumb, its abdomen etched with microscopic Khmer numerals. 37, 82, 4. Lottery numbers. A dead man's birth date. It zips away before you can ask, taking your existential questions with it. The air smells of burnt sugar now, old lanterns wicking into nothingness. You recall that Cambodian glowworms were once stewed into sorrow tonics for jilted lovers. The recipe: 3 beetles, palm wine, and a thumbnail of crushed nostalgia. Tastes like regret and battery acid, allegedly. One light lingers, drawing a cursive S 6 times in midair. The 6th attempt finally holds, glowing like a drunk celestial seamstress's first stitch. It could mean Suryav Arman, or sorry, or sap rising. You choose the middle option. It's the politest apocalypse. Dawn feathers the eastern window slats, blue seeping into black. The fireflies dim, their apologies recycled for tomorrow's backlog. Your left hand tingles where a messenger rested, its phantom heat spelling. We tried in dermographic ink. As the last light fades, you spot a single word smeared in afterglow: Sabai. A Khmer nicety meaning at ease. Or maybe it's just the residue of sleep-deprived rods and cones. Either way, you pocket the sensation, a glowing consonant lodged behind your sternum. Muffled roosters crow through walls, feathery snooze buttons for the village. The fireflies' retreat leaves the storehouse balanced between grogginess and regret. You exhale a sentence no insect will carry, your breath erasing itself in the hungover air. Your heel crunches something at the threshold, a crusted line of rice paste arcing across the wood. Centuries of villagers smeared this gluey mortar here, each dollop sealing prayers into the grain. Historians confirm Angkor's temple builders mixed rice, paste with lime for sacred bricks, their version of holy concrete. The dried streak parts under your toe, revealing tiny footprints pressed into its surface, five-toed impressions the size of cocktail napkins, divine pinky toes, forever mid-step. Colonial-era French diggers found similar marks at Banty Chhmar, though those bore rodent teeth marks along the edges. Seems even temple mice crave a taste of godhood. You crouch, the air here smells like forgotten birthday cakes. Moldering rice offerings dot the floor, handfuls left to petrify into sweet-smelling stone. One lump cradles a child's milk tooth. Another holds a braided lock of hair gone silver with age. Historians still argue whether these god traps were meant to invite deities or imprison restless spirits. A chill creeps up your calves, the thresholds colder than January tile. Those paste footprints seem to pulse now, throbbing like weak nightlights beneath your knees. You recall Khmer construction crews still bury rice figurines under new hotels, silent bargaining, chips with the dirt itself. Moonlight bleeds through the doorway, turning the fossilized offerings into chess pieces. The largest lump resembles a frog, or maybe a very disappointed toad. Rainstorms have blurred its features, leaving it perpetually mid-metamorphosis. You resist the urge to lick it, though rumors say 19th century French archivists did exactly that. Their field notes mention hints of tamarind and regrettable life choices. Something crumbles under your palm, the edge of a footprint, disintegrating into sugary dust. 300 years of foot traffic haven't erased these divine toe prints. But your clumsy human mitt achieves what centuries couldn't. The powdered rice tastes alarmingly sweet, like sacramental fun dip. Shadows pool in the archway, stretching the godly footprints into clown shoe proportions. You half expect a sandstone foot to come stomping through, maybe trailing bits of ancient orchard from between its toes. Instead, a gecko scuttles across the sacred paste, leaving its own tiny hieroglyphics beside the holy tracks. Collaborative worship, reptilian edition. Dawn's first flies buzz around the offerings, their wings catching the gummy residue. One gets stuck midair, hovering like a biplane in maple syrup. You consider helping, but remember that time in Siem Reap when freeing a fly summoned 7 days of monsoon. Best not risk it. The rotting rice exhales, its fermented breath fogging your glasses. Through the haze, the smallest footprint seems to shift. Or maybe you're just sleep-deprived enough to hallucinate divine podiatry. The Khmer Rouge tried erasing these superstitions in the 70s, but villagers kept resupplying the threshold each full moon. Some traditions outlive even genocide. Your shadow falls across the offerings, a modern blot on antiquity's altar. For balance, you leave a peppermint wrapper from your pocket. Let future archaeologists debate its ritual significance. The moon retreats, taking the footprints glow with it. What remains smells like devotion, and faintly of rice, pudding left in a damp sock drawer. Cocktails of mildew and sucrose coat your tongue, the aftertaste of someone else's faith. You rise, knees popping like bubble wrap. Behind you, the gecko licks its eyeballs in holy approval. Or maybe it's just judging your life choices. Either way, you've overstayed your welcome at the gods' sticky doorstep. Your shadow slips from the threshold like shed skin, entering a cathedral of surplus. Bulging rice sacks tower everywhere, pregnant with next season's hope and last season's sweat. They lean against each other, comrades shoulder to shoulder, after surviving some existential war. You've heard Ankorera granaries stored enough grain to feed 10,000 workers during drought, an ancient insurance policy against famine. The nearest sack exhales through its burlap pores, its breath smelling of sun-baked patties and teenage rebellion. Your palm sinks into the mound, disappearing up to the wrist. Each grain presses your skin with parental insistence, as if demanding you acknowledge its 300 days of growth. A beetle carcass crumbles between your fingers, some fallen warrior in the Great Weevil Wars of 1923. Overhead, rafters creak under rice's gentle tyranny. 3 sacks near the ceiling have split at the seams, spilling plump grains like a cartoon. Giants' popcorn guts. Historians still argue whether Khmer storehouses used these bulging breaches as primitive pressure gauges, or if they just really sucked at sewing. You kick off your sandals. Cool grain oozes between your toes. It's like standing in a dermabrasion salon run by overly enthusiastic grandmothers. The floor shifts slightly, a slow-motion earthquake caused by settling carbohydrates. Somewhere beneath your feet, 3 meters down, lies a 14th century flip-flop. Or so claims a 1980s geomagnetic survey, though the report also showed anomalous cupcake-shaped readings that nobody could explain. A sack groans as you lean against it, the sound of a very contented walrus. Its burlap skin feels warm, almost alive. You remember rice barns in rural Battambang, where farmers swear the grains sing on moonless nights. Crouching here now, ear pressed to shuddering fibers, you catch a faint hum. Or maybe it's just tinnitus from that ill-advised karaoke dive bar in Phnom Penh. Your knees begin their silent protest, begging for relief from all this agrarian majesty. You slump deeper into the rice, the mound conforming to your shape like a memory foam deity. Particles trickle down your collar, an itchy baptism into the cult of surplus. Above, moths orbit a lone lantern, drunken satellites drawn to the granary's personal sun. Something stirs near the western wall, a sack, adjusting its posture with a leathery sigh. Its heft shifts the entire stack, triggering an avalanche of husks. They pour from an overhead basket, dusting your hair with edible snow. Colonial tax records show French officials took 50% of harvests, but never figured out where villagers hid the good rice. Turns out all they needed was dandruff camouflage. The air thickens, each breath feels like inhaling a down comforter. Humidity glues your shirt to the small of your back, a moist mandala of discomfort. You try counting sacks to stay awake. 97, 98, 90 wait. Did that one just multiply? Scholars remain divided on why Khmer rice stores often exceeded mathematical logic. Some blame tired counters. Others whisper about borrowing from next season's yield. A gecko plops onto your shoulder, its cold feet doing a cha-cha on your collarbone. It licks one eyeball while staring at your nose, perhaps contemplating higher truths or estimating your protein content. You recall a Cambodian proverb: full granaries make sleepy geckos. Or was that something you hallucinated during that incense overdose at Wat Bo? Shadows merge as lanterns dim, the storehouse becoming a velveteen womb. Your limbs grow leaden, not unlike those sacks sulking in the corner. Even blinking becomes laborious, each descent of eyelids requiring parliamentary debate. Beneath you, grains whisper through the floorboards, sneaking off to join some secret rice rave in the subsoil. Dawn lingers beyond the walls, a rumor denied by the night's loyalists. Your last conscious thought, recognition. This weight in your bones, this surrender to gravity's outstretched arms, it's how the rice must feel, full, safe, and utterly trapped by its own abundance. Your eyelids flutter open to fractured starlight, bamboo slats carving Orion into bite-sized pieces. 3 pulsing dots pierce the thatch his belt, snagged on the eastern eaves like cosmic laundry. You blink at the constellation. Or is that a gecko's belly? Cambodian sky myths get fuzzy after midnight. A roof beam cuts the Milky Way into 19 luminous strips, nature's barcode for snoozing deities. Scholars note Angkor Wat's towers align with Draco's stars during spring equinoxes. But this humble granary, its rafters frame Cassiopeia's throne with suspicious accuracy. Historians still argue whether these splits were celestial blueprints or termite real estate deals. Cool air seeps through the gaps, each breath tasting of ionized helium and yesterday's rain. Your finger connects the dots Beetlejuice to Rigel, forming a lazy triangle with that suspicious-looking knot. Villagers once named constellations after rice pests, twinkling weevils immortalized in star-flecked shame. You're pretty sure that clump over there is the great aphid. Something moves in the thatch, a bat's silhouette eclipsing the Pleiades. Its wingspan blots out 7 stars, which feels excessive for a creature the size of your fist. Colonial astronomers mapped these skies in 1893. Their notes complain about rogue fireflies obscuring key observations. The original Yelp review of Cambodian airspace. Your neck prickles, pine resin clumps tickling your scalp like astral dandruff. Above, the roof's ZIGZ, a G Chinese letter, mirrors the Mekong's bend during wet season, or your cousin's EKG after 3 Red Bulls. A 14th century palm leaf manuscript describes storehouse roofs as eyes to greet the star mothers, though the scribe was reportedly high on fermented mangosteen. Satellites creep across the sky, corporate constellations muscling past ancient ones. You track one until it winks out, swallowed by Earth's shadow mid-blink. 2 fireflies drift upward their green pulses, mocking the dead tech. Someone really should tell NASA about this bioluminescent competition. A shooting star tears through Cygnus, its trail lingering like a chalk mark on slate. You make a wish, then instantly forget it. Probably something about better Wi-Fi. Local lore claims falling stars are rice goddesses checking inventory. Their sparks ignite when they spot slacking harvesters. The Southern Cross emerges sideways, toppled by some celestial janitor's broom. Its lowest star aligns with a rusty nail in the west wall, creating a navigation aid for drunk bats. Archaeologists found 9th century beads in nearby fields, matching Orion's belt dimensions, sparking debates about DIY astronomy kits. Wood creaks as the storehouse stretches, its bamboo ribs adjusting to night's cool embrace. The Big Dipper's handle now drips starlight onto a moldering ledger below. You recall Tonlé sap fishermen navigate by ripples in the Milky Way, which explains why their boats keep circling that one confused squid. Dawn pokes the horizon, its approach hinted by Sirius dimming, like a bulb with dying batteries. Humidity returns, draping your skin in gauzy warmth. The storehouse exhales grain-scented breath, a final sigh before daybreak's inevitable spreadsheet of chores. Your last constellation connects 3 moth holes in the roof, forming a lopsided trapezoid of questionable cosmic significance. Let future scholars name it. You've got blisters from lying on rice sacks and an urgent need for pancakes. Dawn licks the eastern horizon, its pink tongue erasing star after star. You count 5 canine voices now, each bark a needle-sewing night's tattered edges shut. Historians note Cambodian village dogs descend from Khmer Empire watchhounds, bred to growl at monsoon spirits and tax collectors. Their yips form a chain across the valley, one farm to the next, like some flea-bitten bucket brigade. A particularly shrill woof echoes from the rice paddies, possibly objecting to your earlier Orion redesign. Local myths claim dogs howl in unison to swap gossip between villages, though the topics usually suspect mice or particularly fragrant dung heaps. The lead hound's call hitches, interrupted by a sneeze. Its comrades pause, the silence swelling like a blister, before bursting into renewed frenzy. Archaeologists found 12th century dog collars inscribed with curses against night walkers, the weather that meant ghosts, or just insomniac farmers' remains. Your heel grinds into a rice sack, the crunch of husks mimicking distant teeth. A chain reaction of growls erupts, lower and wetter than before. Village elders swear dogs see wraiths riding termite, swarms their barks, acting as ectoplasmic repellent. You're pretty sure that white blur was just a chicken. 3 sharp yelps pierce the dark, staccato warnings sliced by the rumble of a motorbike. Engines mute the pact, asphalt conquering furred throat songs. Historians still argue whether the Khmer used dogs as couriers or just compost critics. A flea-ridden messenger service does explain those chewed-up royal edicts. The pack's matriarch unleashes a proper howl, vibrations thrumming through your jawbone. Her jowly tremolo could shatter wineglasses. If anyone here drank anything fancier than palm sap, colonial diaries complain of indigestible canine operas disrupting midnight surveys. Imagine filing frontier paperwork to a backup chorus of woofs. Silence drops like a gunnysack over rice. Even geckos freeze mid-chirp. Tradition claims dawn breaks when dogs approve the night's work, their silence denoting grudging satisfaction. You spot the alpha female flopping onto a compost pile, her duty done. Fresh sunlight glints off limestone hills, blade-sharp edges softening to butter yellow. The storehouse exhales, releasing its grip on your shirt collar. Somewhere, puppies stir in bamboo kennels, dreaming of devouring tomorrow's shadows. Their snores blend with yours as the first rooster clears his throat. The air congeals around you, thick enough to spread on rice cakes. Your shirt bonds with your spine like a jealous lover, each thread pledging undying adhesion. 17th century Khmer granaries used lime plaster to repel moisture. Though tonight's humidity laughs at such mortal efforts, mosquitoes orbit your ankles, tiny helicopters debating landing rights. You pretend not to sweat, dignity dissolving faster than palm sugar in monsoon runoff. Village grandmas whisper that night air turns to soup after the 87th rainfall, a claim no one's lived long enough to verify. Something drips from the rafters, water or bat saliva, splatting warm on your collarbone. A gecko chirps its disapproval from the shadows. Historians still argue whether Angkor events were for airflow or designed to let rice spirits waltz through. Your money's on the dancing ghosts. Your lungs drink syrup with every breath. Even the rats nap now, their whiskers drooping like oversteamed bean sprouts. Colonial botanists wrote of noxious vapors causing midday comas, failed to mention how cozy that collapse could feel. A bead of sweat traces your ribs, charting a lazy course southward. You idly wonder if salted skin preserves better than pork. 16th century traders packed sleep-deprived scholars in rice bran, a niche service offering dubious results. Moths batter the lone lantern, drawn to heat they'll never comprehend. Their shadows ripple across bulging rice sacks. Rorschach blots only the bats might decode. Some claim night humidity sharpens dreams, turning them into glass shards, ready to cut dawn's throat. Your eyelids sink, anchored by warmth older than Angkor Wat. The storehouse walls exhale centuries of mold spores, each one a lullaby in particulate form. Farmers still swear by fermented rice, paste under the tongue, and insomnia cure tasting of regret and yeast. Silence pools in your ears like spilled honey. Even the geckos have called it a night, their sticky feet resigned to tomorrow's hunt. You don't fight the heaviness anymore. Let the damp claim you whole. Lantern flames shrink to blue embers, their fight against night almost noble. Your exhales sink with the dying light, each breath stealing a photon's worth of glow. 14th century Khmer builders embedded ironwood pillars at cardinal points, a fact you'd find fascinating if your brain weren't dissolving into tapioca. A spider lowers itself onto your shoulder, architect of silk highways. You half recall village tales about 8-legged spirit guides, though this one seems more interested in your earwax. Historians still argue whether granary symmetry honored harvest gods or just pleased some long-dead engineer's obsessive eye. Shadows fuse together like melted lacquer. Your outline blurs at the edges, knees becoming one with the teak floorboards. Local legends swear certain planks swallow midnight stragglers whole, but you're too drowsy to fact-check folklore. The last lantern winks out darkness, rushing in like reservoir water through a broken dam. Your heartbeat echoes the granary's nightly ritual, ticks slowing to match bamboo creaks in the rafters. 19th century French colonists wrote of workers nailing coins to doorframes against grain-stealing demons they never saw. Cool air drapes across your neck, a phantom hand offering final benediction. Even the rice sacks stop rustling, their whispered secrets archived in your closing mind. Some claim stored grains ferment dreams into visions, turning sleepers into temporary oracles. You're just hoping to avoid a crick in your neck. Fingertips forget where skin ends and wood begins. Moths collapse gently onto your sleeve, their fuel reserves spent chasing extinct light. Decades of laborers left their sweat in these walls. Now you're donating your eyelids' weight to the collective. Night completes its alchemy, transforming flesh into another storehouse shadow. The bats don't stir as you dissolve, too busy calculating tomorrow's insect payroll. Your last coherent thought tastes of jasmine rice and inevitability. Then, even that slips into the granary's hungry silence. Lanterns sigh into ash blue whispers, their dance with the dark, now a lullaby. Your shoulders sink as shadows pool around bare feet, wood grain rising to meet your ankles like an old friend. That spider, gone off to weave dreams in some forgotten corner. Archaeologists once measured each pillar here with palm spans and prayer. but numbers feel heavy now. Let them go. Night air swirls thick with the musk of forgotten harvests. Your eyelashes catch dust, motes suspended for decades, tiny guardians of stillness. They say farmers buried clay tokens under floorboards, charms against rats and restlessness. You're too untethered to doubt them. The rafters hum a warped melody, bamboo bending under the weight of starless sky. Coolness seeps through your shirt, not quite a touch, more like the granary itself breathing. Even the bats have closed their ledgers, wings folded into leathery receipts. Your thumb traces a knot in the teak, centuries-old sap still pooled beneath the surface. No need to wonder who pressed their palm here last. Rice sacks slump into shapeless bergs, their cargo settling like syllables in a finished story. Your jaw unclenches, releasing words you'll never need to speak. Somewhere beyond these walls, monks chant the hour. Here, time spills its pockets, keys, coins, centuries, all rolling into the same quiet ache. Fingers dissolve into the warm patina of oil and age. A moth's wing grazes your wrist, velvet ghost from a snuffed-out flame. Let the darkness burden itself with history. You're just borrowed starchild needing a place to spill your constellations. Dawn crouches beyond the horizon, patient scribe with an empty ledger. For now, let silence be your blanket. Let the granary's ancient lungs breathe for you. The last flicker behind your ribs dims, not an extinguishing, but a gentle surrender to the chorus of sleeping things. No visions, no answers, just a single grain of stillness rolling into the cradle of your palm, then nothing and everything, and softly fading, the quiet hum of a world that knows how to hold you.